We live in a time where secular culture is the norm, where being religious is deemed optional and is not necessarily a need for day-to-day living. At first, the ideas that created secular cultures seemed reformed and maybe even somewhat intellectual. But just because something seems to be reformed and intellectual does not mean that it is the correct answer. And sometimes it takes a bit of time before the flaws of such ideas are shown in full scale. In the 17th and 18th centuries, what started a bit more moderate despite still being flawed by using moral relativism and disregarding certain moral truths, later evolved into the radical and horrifying culture that exists here today. A culture that promotes homosexuality, adultery, divorce, and all sorts of sexual immorality, and paints it as normal. The same culture that now allows women to kill their own children in their womb for the sake of convenience, and even promotes it as a morally good act. This culture has led the youth astray, which causes major mental trauma, distress, and illness to increase in our society, specifically in Gen Z, and it might possibly even affect Gen Alpha soon. Before I dive into this, I'd like to say that this channel was not created to debate. I'm not here to convince, I'm here to inform and state the objective truth. We all have free will, but it is important what we do with that free will, and that does not give anybody the green light to do despicable acts. I want to show and tell how secular culture has destroyed the West, the youth, and how we can combat this from a Christian point of view, specifically a Catholic Christian point of view. The first thing I'd like to discuss is why secularism fundamentally fails almost immediately. The mindset of moral relativism denies the objective standard of morality, which means that even if it starts off quote-unquote controlled, it's constantly changing without a foundation, where one person can think that their way of thinking on morals is right, and a different person thinks that that individual is wrong, and they are right. It can get so bad to the point where relativism eventually allows an individual to justify even acts such as murder. And unfortunately, we have gotten to that turning point. We are seeing people getting murdered for their opinions left and right, and it's getting worse and worse as the years go on. The reason why relativism fails is that it not only causes differences in moral beliefs that are foundational to society, but can also cause chaos and anarchy. How do I know you are right and I'm wrong? If everything is subjective, maybe in 50 years my opinion will be the correct view. And that's the issue with it. There is no full objectivity to it. Without God, what seems to be quote-unquote objective by common sense eventually becomes subjective because people trust their own singular authority. The first precept of law is that good is to be done and pursued, and evil is to be avoided. Why is it that every human being has an understanding of good versus evil? Why is it that we as human beings see acts and classify them as either good or bad? Why does our human rationale and intellect allow us to make such an observation instead of us just living based on instinct like animals and other creatures on Earth? To me, it is very clear that there is something we have that no other creature on this earth has, and natural law has been observed by all humans throughout all centuries throughout the course of history. When we see someone get hurt, most of us would cringe or feel uneasy seeing violence, or seeing someone die could be a deeply traumatizing experience. We see St. Thomas Aquinas speak about natural law in the Summa. Now, among all others, the rational creature is subject to divine providence in the most excellent way, insofar as it partakes of a share of providence, by being provident both for itself and for others. Wherefore it has a share of the eternal reason, whereby it has a natural inclination to its proper act and end. And this participation of the eternal law in the rational creature is called natural law. And even before St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine also writes about this concept of objective morality proving God. If there is something more excellent than the truth, then that is God. If not, the truth itself is God. So in either case, you cannot deny that God exists. Our society has reached a point where even these natural truths that we consider to be evil acts are starting to be warped and changed into morally permissible or even right. So, how should we, as Christians, combat this secularism and this secular culture? Well, the first and obvious answer is gonna be prayer. I think that the world needs prayer more than ever right now, especially with all the tragedies that have been happening in the month of September and even in October. We definitely need prayer. The second way is don't be afraid to state your opinion. And of course, do it charitably, because we don't want to end up being the ones hating others when Christ taught us not to hate. Don't be afraid to be open about your beliefs, especially as a Catholic Christian. We shouldn't be afraid to say what we believe in and what we truly think is the truth, because it's not just that we think it's the truth. No, it is. It's objective, and history proves it. Another way to combat secular culture, or just get away from it and grow in your spiritual life, is go on a retreat. Go on a spiritual retreat. Find somewhere where you can go and spend a weekend. No phone, no technology, no anything, just a rosary, a Bible, and you and God. Because trust me, we need that kind of simplicity in our society more than ever right now. But if you want to be more on the offensive side, see if you can find a young adult group that's vocal and possibly does pro-life marches if it's possible. And don't be afraid, because people will get mad at you, people will be furious with you, people will disagree. That's what we're called for. Jesus spoke about this. That means that we're going in the right direction. What's even more important is that we should be praying for those people who hate us, who go against us, and have mercy on them. Ask the Lord to have mercy on them, because a lot of us were probably in the same position they were in years ago. So we're in no place to sit there and yell at them. We can point the sin out, we can condemn the sin, but we should also pray that they let go of that sin and come to us. Together with our rosary and prayer and with our Lord Jesus Christ, we will defeat secular culture. God bless you all, and may Mary keep you.